Hello guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you who don't already know me, my name is Yasmin. I was about to say 17. I'm 18 years old and I am a second year student at McGill University. Okay, so since we are in midterm season or going into midterm season, I made some videos all about how to ace every single one of your exams. They're split into what you should do before your exam, during your exam, and after your exam. So if you guys haven't already watched last week's video, which is all about what to do before your exam, make sure you check that out before you get into this week's video, which is all about what to do during your exam and after your exam. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the second section, which is all about what you need to do the day of your exam. And this is split into two parts, which is review and execution. So like I mentioned in my last video, you should never, ever learn any new information the day before the exam. It should always be left for review. And on the day of your exam, this should not be any different. Do not try to learn any new information. Just go over your study guides, take time out of your day just to make sure and reassure yourself of all the material that you learned. Just reassure yourself, you know what, I already know this. You just want to go over it, you know, type of thing. A good way to do this is by making cheat sheets, making index cards. A lot of the times when people are worried that they'll forget something, they like to write them down. So you can do that. You can write down things you're worried you're gonna forget. Scientifically speaking, the most thing that helps you remember is conversation, because you're more likely to remember your conversations than your thoughts. So most of the time, something that I do actually all the time is every time I learn something new, I'll make a conversation about it. Like, even if no one's listening, I will go to like my mom or like my dad or my sister and be like, oh my god, did you know 1 2 3 4? Did you know blah 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 blah? Like, it doesn't matter if no one's listening to me, I'll just say it out loud, because the more times you put something into a conversation, the more times you repeat it, the more times you'll remember it, and the better you'll get at like understanding this information. Fun fact, this is actually why teachers are so good at their jobs, because they're always repeating the same information and it's always kind of in a conversation, like when you're asking questions and answering, which is why they remember it so well and why they're like able to teach it to other people. So the next thing you need to do is focus on the content, not on your feelings. You need to be focusing on what's going to come in the exam, not on how stressed you are. And something you need to do to make sure you're focusing on the content, not on your feelings, is to stay away from stressed students. I cannot emphasize this enough. Something I always do is I always show up to my exam on time, not like an hour before, because there's always that group of students which are always super stressed and do you know this and do you think this is coming and blah, 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 and it stresses you out. And again, you want to stay away from those stressed feelings. I mean, it's normal to feel stressed, but you want to reduce that as much as possible. Don't put yourself in an environment where you're going to be around stressed students and you know that's going to make you feel more stressed. Especially if like people are going to be asking you so many questions and sometimes right at the moment you don't know how to answer because you don't feel like you're thinking properly. It makes you panic and it's going to make you stressed. So even if you know the answer, you're going to feel very panicky and very stressed, and you want to avoid that as much as possible. And honestly, you just need to remember that like it's the day of the exam. If you know it, you know it. If you don't know it, you don't know it, and that's that. You can't just say like, oh no, but I can learn it. No, because it takes time for information to stick in your brain. If you learn something, by the next day, you're probably gonna forget 50 to 80% of the information that you learned. So that's gonna be the same thing. If you try to learn something like an hour before the exam, you're not gonna be able to learn it. So if you know it, you know it. If you don't know it, you don't know it. Focus on what you know. So the next thing you need to do, and this is something that I mentioned in my last video, but it's very important for the day of the exam, so I'm going to mention it again, is to practice mindfulness. And basically, what I explained in my last video is that feelings of anxiety come from worrying about the future, and feelings of depression come from living in the past. So what you need to do is practice mindfulness, which is all about living in right now. Don't be worrying about like, oh my god, is this gonna come in my exam? Oh my god, I failed my last exam, whatever. No, you should just be focusing on what you can actually control, which is right now. And a good way of doing this is by doing box breathing exercises. It's where you inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and then hold for 4 seconds. And the reason that it's called a box breathing exercise is because while you're doing this, you have to visualize a box, and this helps you calm down and like get back in the zone of like, you know what, I need to focus on right now instead of focusing on what might happen or what has happened in the past. I'm so sorry for like all the crazy lighting. I swear the weather in Canada is just crazy. 1 second it's sunny, 1 second it's not sunny, so that's what's been going on right now. But anyways, the last thing you need to do while you're reviewing for an exam is visualize a good exam. Set your brain up in a state where you believe that the exam is going to be very positive. And the reason I say this is because psychologically speaking, there's something called self-fulfilling prophecy. It's when you believe something's going to happen, so it actually does happen. So you know what, if you visualize a good exam and you believe you're going to have a good exam, you will. Okay, so the next part is execution. So when you get your exam, the first thing you need to do is go through the entire exam and then plan ahead. And most people would say like, oh, I don't have time, my exam is only 1 hour, I can't just like, oh my god, there's so much time. And a lot of people would avoid planning ahead because they don't want to waste time during their exam, but it actually helps so much. So when I think of when I was back in high school, I was in the IB program and our exams were crazy long and they were crazy hard. So because our exams were like 3 hours, every single teacher used to always tell us, just take the first 5 and 10 minutes and just plan what you're gonna do. Plan ahead, because planning can really make the biggest difference. And if your exam is 1 hour, maybe take the first few minutes and just go over the entire thing. How many different styles of questions are there? How much time do you have? Break it down by value and give different amounts of time to different questions based on the value of the question. So for an example, any long answer questions or short answer questions, make sure you give them more value than like multiple choice questions. So the next thing you need to make sure you do when you are in your exam is reading your question 3 times. So the reason you should read your questions 3 times, first, to prove to yourself that you can read. Second, to actually understand the question. And third, to break down every single part of the question. Make sure if there are 2 sides of the questions, the more that you read it, you'll remember that there's more than one part to this question. There's more than one part that I need to answer, because sometimes when you read something once, you don't really focus and you just kind of like start going without properly thinking of, okay, there's another part to this question type of thing. Do you know what I mean? Something that I also always do is I get a highlighter with me and I highlight action words and keywords to make sure, like let's say if it's a long answer question, I know what I'm writing, I know what point I'm trying to explain based on the action words in this question. And by the way, a lot of the times, sometimes the exam, it likes to trick you, so that's why sometimes highlighting the action words makes a really big difference to make sure you're getting exactly the point of the question. So another thing, sometimes when you're planning in your exam, you can plan when to take just like a little water break. Sometimes people, they like to have their moisturizers. I know some people who do this, they like to have like a little moisturizer with them. Take a break, just moisturize their hands, breathe. Like it's fine. 30 seconds is not gonna waste any time on your exam. It honestly just helps you feel less stressed and focus better on your exam. So if you really feel like you want to take like a 30-second 1-minute break, then I think you should schedule it during your exam time. Like personally, that's something that really helps with me. Okay, this is gonna sound so weird, but something that has always helped me is having my nails done. For me, whenever I'd be like writing and I'm like super stressed, sometimes I'll just stop and I'd look at my nails, get a little moisturizer, moisturize my hands, and I'd feel so calm. I'd feel very put together. Like always do things that make you feel put together. For me, having my nails done makes me feel put together, so if that helps with you, then do so. So the last thing during your exam is making sure you schedule like maybe the last 5 minutes for review. And basically when it comes to review, never ever change an entire answer when you're reviewing, because more often than not your first answer is the right answer. And this has actually happened to me so many times where I'd like write an answer, be so confident in it, and then when I want to review, I'm like, should I change it? And then it would end up being wrong. So like I said, more often than not your first answer is the right answer, so always stick to that. Just use your review time to like fix little mistakes, or like maybe grammar, spelling, punctuation if it's like an exam where you need to write. If it's nothing like that, then just go over your questions to make sure you have the right idea, but don't be changing entire answers, you know? Okay, so the last section of this entire series of how to ace every single one of your exams is what you need to do after you're done your exam. So again, like I said before, stay away from stressed students as much as possible. And the reason that I say this is because when you're done your exam, you are not in control of what's gonna happen next. Whatever, it's done, you gave it in, you don't know what's gonna happen, you can't change anything, but you don't want to feel stressed after that. You don't want to be worried like, oh my god, did I put the right answer, or whatever. Stay away from stress, students. You want to feel as relaxed as possible, because again, you can't control whatever is going to happen next, so you want to avoid these people as much as possible. And then after you get your exam back, you need to assess yourself. You know, where did I go wrong? Did I focus too much on the presentations instead of the lectures? Did I focus too much on the lectures instead of the book? Things like that. And it's always different for every single class, especially in uni, because every prof works in their own way. So that's why it's always best to assess yourself after every exam. Like, I've had so many exams where the prof is like, literally don't even touch your book, and then for another class the prof would be like, it's entirely from the book. So you need to look back at your exam, look back at yourself. What did I put too much focus on? Where should I focus on next? And honestly, if you focus on all the right things, good for you. That's amazing. And you don't just need to assess your answers and your study methods, but you need to look back and look at your entire exam process. You know, where did you go right and where did you go wrong? Not in terms of answers, but in terms of how you felt. You know, is something that you necessarily did during your exam made you lose time, make you more stressed, things like that, what you should avoid doing next time, but also things that helped you feel less stressed, what you should do next time. Like I said, there is a video you guys should watch before this, and something that I mentioned is all about your study environment, the exam process, the way that you plan, the way that you schedule, all of the things like that. So if you feel like there was a problem in the way that you scheduled, now you know what I should do next time, what I shouldn't do next time, things like that. And remember, if there are things that went wrong, that's completely okay, because it's okay to take things one step at a time. I mean, not everyone is the best exam taker. Speaking of myself, I literally was so convinced that I am so bad at taking exams because I felt like my knowledge wasn't reflecting on paper. But sometimes I just need to stop and think to myself, you know what, it's also the way that I'm visualizing how this is gonna go. If I visualize that this is gonna go badly and I'm convinced that I'm a bad test taker, it's gonna go bad. But I needed to practice being more positive, and that's something that really helped me. And just because I did that doesn't mean I'm amazing at taking exams, because everything comes in steps. You know, progress isn't linear. There's gonna be ups and there's gonna be downs, and it's so important for everyone to remember that it's okay and that progress isn't linear. But trust me guys, trust me, doing everything that I mentioned in my last video and in this video is really gonna make the biggest difference for you, and it applies to everyone. And no matter what your study method is, no matter how you always feel during your exams, trust me, this is gonna help you. So something that I want all of you guys to do is to comment down below things on my last video and on this video, things that you didn't know, things that you want to try out, things that you are gonna try out, how it worked out for you afterwards, and all of that type of jazz. And if any of these tips made a difference for you during your exams, and how much they did make a difference for you. And yeah guys, basically that is the end of this video and this series. I honestly had so much fun recording this because we are getting in midterm season, and I feel like talking about all of these things really helps me too. So thank you guys, because I have a platform now where I can give people all this advice, and it helps you and it helps me. But yeah guys, it is the end of this video, so don't forget, if you guys enjoyed it, subscribe, like, comment, and share this video. And if you guys want to see more content all about lifestyle and university and school and advice and food and basically everything, make sure you guys hit the bell notification down below so you guys get notified every single time I make a video. I'll see you guys next week.